Welcome in to a brand new edition of Rick and Bubba University, the podcast. Rick and Bubba here. Now today, Bubba, we move into really a popular category. These are what we call Rick and Bubba profiles.
That's right. The behind the scenes of the folks that work on the show. Today, Michael Helms.
Michael Helms, better known as Helmsey on the program. Helms, welcome to the program.
Bottom of the barrel, huh?
No. Yeah, we're working through it. I mean, we want to go through all the different people that have joined the program, and I think there's a lot of interest.
Or Coach Leach couldn't do it again.
Right, or Coach Leach pushed us again. Eventually we'll have that one, but no pressure.
Look, I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
You're getting this, really, if you think about it, you're getting it over with.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, because you've been dreading it because you knew we'd unpack and get in
Sure.
there, and you never know what we're going to ask you.
I know.
Well, let's go back to the beginning of your relationship here, and then we'll kind of get into your life as much as you want to. But so Bubba and I have been with Speedy for almost the entire 26 years. You arrived on the scene as technology was changing, and really you were brought on to be almost like a interpreter to our IT department, because there were phrases and things that I certainly didn't understand, and Bubba understood most of it. But you were here to try to look at the way we were handling our IT department to see if we were being maximum efficient. And so through some opportunities that presented themselves, you ended up not just consulting, but actually being the new IT guy. And what year was that?
Oh, my, 2009.
2009.
Yeah.
And you
So I'm about a quarter into my 11th year with you guys. Wow. I met Bubba about 13, 14 years ago on a tennis court through a mutual friend of ours, Tracy Causey. Mm-hmm. And we just developed a friendship, started playing a lot of tennis together, started hunting. I actually met you for the first time on a hunting trip that we all went on. Speedy was actually there. So when I came on board in 2009, Greg was the only one I had not met. So, and of course, I always tell this story. Greg gave what I think is the greatest compliment that anybody could get. One day in my office, I think I'd been here maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and he walked in my office as serious as could be. And he looked at me and he goes, "I got to tell you something, Helms. I was really worried when Bubba brought in one of his tennis buddies. But I got to tell you, you're not so bad. You're all right."
That's about.
And I thought that was the ultimate compliment.
Yeah, that's about as good as it gets from Greg. Yeah. You're not too bad.
Yeah.
That's.
And I think this is going to work out.
You were not. You were telling me, if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, you were not that familiar with the show. You were familiar with Bill Bussey.
Yeah.
And didn't you tell me that your wife had to inform you who you were playing tennis with?
Well, a little bit. So what was funny about that story is we played tennis one night, and I came home, and I was excited to tell Amanda who I played tennis with, because she listened to the show. I did not.
I understood. Okay.
And I remember saying, "Hey, you're never going to believe who was there tonight. Played tennis, got to meet." I said, "So much fun." I said, "Bill Bubba Bussey from the Rick and Bubba Show." And she said, "You making that up?" And I said, "Okay, think about it. If I was going to make somebody up, it'd been like Michael Jordan, Bo Jackson.
Right.
I wouldn't have made up Bill Bubba
Tim
Bussey.
Tebow.
Right, yeah.
And then it was a couple of days later, we connected on the phone, and of course, all roads lead to lunch. And so we went to lunch one day, and friends ever since.
So, Bubba, let's talk about from your point of view. So, when did your wheels start turning that maybe Helmsey could be part of the team?
I think when we started playing tennis, and you're always asking everybody what they do, and he was in the IT business, and I may have bounced a few questions off of him or something, and our situation here was changing, and I think I even mentioned to him that we're kind of going to be transitioning from in-house to maybe out-of-house with an overseer or something, and he was actually going to help us try to find that person. And when we started looking at all the stuff, he said, I might fit that bill. And, I kind of thought the same thing too. So it kind of worked out for both sides.
I can tell you exactly the day that this started happening. It was October, 1st of October, end of September of that fall, because college football was on. And Tim Tebow was at Florida, and they were playing Arkansas, and I was at Bubba's house watching football games, because that was a normal thing. We'd play tennis, we'd go watch football, we'd hunt. And so I was over there, and I don't know if you remember, you may not even know this, but as we're talking, and it just like you said, Helms, you've been in the IT world for 7-8 years. You tell people what to do with their IT every day. We're going through changes. What do you think we should do? And we talked about that. I remember, though, Bubba, Betty actually – was there, and she looked at me and was like, "Why don't you just do it?" And I was like, "Well, that's not a bad idea. Maybe I could. I don't know."
But that was going to be a big change.
Or as we call it, pulling a Dick Cheney. You remember he was supposed to help Bush look for a VP,
you're right.
and then he said, "Well, I've looked at all these people. I think I fit the bill."
Well, I will say this:
Yeah.
my schedule at that point in time was not presenting an ideal situation for me to come here. I worked for a subsidiary with GE Healthcare in the IT medical industry, and I also owned a part of a franchise. So, in all honesty, my schedule didn't allow. I was going to have to let go of a ton of things that I had really spent a lot of time building in order for me to come be a part of the team. But I will say this too: I was on the road a lot, and my family was getting into a situation where I needed to be home more. So this situation that kept presenting itself was starting to be appealing not only to me, but my wife and us, trying to say, okay, it's time that you stop running the roads every day of the week and let's be at home more. And knowing that I had somewhere, just one spot that I could go to every day was very appealing.
So when you started working here, you were not that familiar with the show.
No.
Did your wife encourage you to start getting familiar with it?
Well,
Did you start getting familiar with it?
Well, I will say this. About when Bubba and I first met, I was not familiar with the show. But as you develop a friendship, you start thinking, Bubba would ask me about certain things that would happen in your life in regards to the show, and I would think, well, my goodness, I don't know. I'm not informed. Like, I really ought to start listening to my buddy's radio show.
Right.
Like, I mean, if he's this important to you in your life, maybe I ought to listen to him. It's readily available anywhere you can get it.
Sure.
And so then I started being informed and fell in love with the show, actually.
Really? So
Yeah.
it did appeal to you in the
Yes,
beginning?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was more, it wasn't that you wasn't appealing to me. I just didn't really know about
Right.
you.
You were. I think you told me you were into sports radio.
I was
and,
big sports guy. And what's funny is, and I didn't know any of this till I got acclimated within the show. But when you guys started in Gadsden, my parents lived across the river. They live in that same house today, but they lived across the river from where you guys were broadcasting. And so there were probably times when I was on a wave runner or jet ski or a boat or skiing out in the river right out there beside y'all and had no idea none of us were connected at that time.
If we knew things, Bubba and I talk about this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody come to us and say, "Let me tell you how this is going to go,"
Yeah.
and we think about that all the time. So let's jump in.
I couldn't have been more shocked if it had been a burning bush.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, really.
So really, you came here in 2009, but tell the audience that may not know kind of the Helmsey story. So where you came from, what the things you've done, how you met your wife, all that.
So I grew up in Gadsden, Alabama. My parents are still there. I went to I was in the Glencoe school system, so I went to elementary, middle school, and high school there. From there, went to college at Jacksonville State. So there's another tie. Was there from like 97 to 2001, and got a business degree. The mindset of me that time. I got a business degree. This was the thought process that went into that. I played baseball at Jacksonville State, and all the baseball players were either getting education degrees or sociology degrees. And the only reason I went business is because it was something different to do than everybody else.
No.
It was really sad how I made that decision. But I did get a business degree, barely, have the diploma in my office to prove it. And I met Amanda at Jacksonville State, and I guess I was a junior, she was a sophomore, and we started dated for about 5 years, then got married. We've been married for 18 years. And we got 3 kids. Braden's 14, Caroline will be 13 next month, and Maddie's 7, little Madeline. 7.
Yes.
See, and y'all went through that. Y'all went through a new baby here on the show, and it was awesome to walk through that with you guys. I immediately moved to Birmingham when I graduated from college, and I actually lived with her brother. And this gets into, y'all will laugh at some of this, but for 6 months I lived in Birmingham without Amanda, with her brother. I was an assistant golf pro, of all things, at Oxmoor Valley, right down part of the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail. Left there and went to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Stayed there for less than a month. And guys, I tell you, it was one of those things. We have no kids. Amanda's knocking it out of the park with her nursing degree at this point in time. And I'm just thinking, I can't suck a tie up in a vacuum cleaner cleaning a car one more day. Like,
Right.
I really had a bad attitude. Quit. I told her, I said, I'm quitting. I'm done. And she just thought, whatever, he's not going to quit. And then one day I showed up on a Thursday, like at noon. She's like, what are you doing home? This is not good. So then I tried to sell insurance for about.
I did not know this.
Yeah, I tried to sell insurance. That lasted maybe 2 months. Okay. And so I can't imagine what Amanda and her family were thinking. Boy, my daughter has married a loser. This guy has had 3 or 4 different jobs in less than 6-8 months. What's next? And one of my dear friends who was in my wedding, played ball with me at Jacksonville State, he's from Omaha, Nebraska originally, Brandon Myers, reached out to me and he said, hey, listen, I'm working for a medical company called Source Medical, and we're hiring a few positions I think you'd be perfect for. Now, you're probably not going to like what you're going to be doing. You're going to be doing some support, IT support. You're going to be on the phones a lot. You're going to be sitting in front of a computer a lot. But if you'll do this and do a good job for 6 to 8 months, this company is growing and positions are always available within, and you'll get one of those. And it will give you some stability that you need. He was very upfront because he knew what I was going through, and he knew that I was making some bad decisions on these jobs and quitting before. I quit the enterprise thing before I even had an insurance job.
Right.
Think about that a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, that's got to be comforting for a wife.
Yeah, sure.
And so that was probably the best decision that I made up until that point, because I stayed with Source Medical for 4 or 5 years. And then Brandon and my brother left and went to another medical company. My brother came on to Source Medical after I did. So it was Brandon, my brother, and we were all good friends working within this company. They left. I followed them to that company and then left there for another opportunity. But I was in the healthcare IT industry for about 7.5 years. And then that's when I came on with Rick and Bubba.
Then you decided to move up the ladder.
Then come on in.
Which, and you know, you look at this, and I say this to people all the time, 11th year, if you were to tell me 13 years ago, hey, Helms, I know you finally got this turned around and you like what you're doing in the healthcare industry, and I did. I kind of finally found my place. If you would have told me that I was about to be a part of a nationally syndicated radio and television show, I would have laughed you out of the room.
So why do you think that you made that decision? Why do you think that is? Because you were leaving stability.
I was.
To an area, you know, we had no idea at the time, honestly, the IT world of apps and even the Extreme Club stuff that we went through and all the different social media and all that still was it was still in its infant stage.
Yeah.
When you came here. Really, when you came here, it was kind of like, hey, make sure our website is working right.
Yeah.
And now it just continues to build and build and build. And you can see how important it is now. But to make that shift to a radio show that sometimes is seen on video, you know, that has a website and an online store, that doesn't seem like that's a move up in the IT world.
No, and matter of fact, it was it wasn't for me, and it was one of those things too where I honestly didn't have any idea what you had infrastructure in here when I made that decision. I hadn't had a chance to look under the hood. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what you had. I didn't know if I was inheriting a nightmare or a really good situation.
So what made you do it?
Well, here's what it was.
Okay.
It goes back to needing to get off the road.
Right.
And I had built such a network of folks in the medical IT industry that I knew I could always go back and do that.
It's almost like you could dip your toe in it.
If I wanted to dip my toe into this for a year, and I remember you, Rick, telling me, you said to me, why don't you try this for a year? And if you don't like it, go back to doing what you were doing. And so that's what I did. And I knew that those opportunities would be there. Maybe not in the same company, but like I said, there was a network that I could have reached out to and would have been okay in that world if I wanted to go back to that. Now, I had no idea that jumping into this would turn into what it has.
Right. Well, none of us did.
I had no clue there. But I remember there was about 2 weeks into me being here, and I stayed in my office, and you walked back there and you said, hey, look, I know you've inherited some things around here that are not ideal, but we do want you to come in here every once in a while and spend some time with us. And so I was like, okay, don't really know what that means. And I remember too, at first I didn't know what, like I would take a notepad and document when I would say something. I don't even know if y'all knew this or not.
No, I did.
But like if I had talked one segment, I would put it down on my notepad and I would tell myself, don't say anything for another 3 segments. Like, don't be that guy. Don't be that guy. And so, and every once in a while, I never really understand the board at first. I didn't understand whose mic was what because I was so new to this. And so I'd come in and I'd be like, okay, my mic's off, so I'm good. And then all of a sudden, you started after a few months, you were getting to know me better. So you knew, okay, I know Helms can chime in on this subject, so I'm going to bring his mic up. And so then I got to realizing, okay, Rick's going to let me know when he wants me to talk because he's going to turn my mic on. And when he doesn't, just shut up. Yeah. And so I was kind of watching all those things and learning all those things. Yeah. And then there was that uncomfortable moment about a year or two later where you just got in the habit of turning all the mics on. Right. And I was like, now I don't know when to talk. Yeah, because I was going off your lead, and so then I got back to documenting. Okay, if you talk here, then don't talk for another. It's funny how your mind works, but I didn't want to be that guy that just came in and talked over everybody.
Well, the show is such a stream of consciousness, and there is a certain rhythm that you have to figure out. Even Greg, we were talking. Greg will tell you this, and we talked about it. Greg, when I would talk about him, and Bubba and I would talk about him as this character that was this blue-collar guy that would be brought up and call in every now and then and all that, he talked about, too, even though we know what Greg brings to the table, when you get into an ensemble of a panel and you have the 2 main hosts and then everybody else is kind of available, I use this analogy all the time, that I sit over here as the ringmaster and I'm pointing to ring number 1, ring number 2, ring number 3, and try to figure out what role does everybody play. Yeah. But like Greg talked about, you have to learn this rhythm, and sometimes we do it well, sometimes we don't, all of us, me included, is that even if I have something to say, I got to learn the rhythm of when to say it or nobody hears it. Yeah. It gets walked on top of, or I walked on top of somebody else. Your first reaction is, if I think of it, say it. Yeah. And then you have to kind of learn to pause and then put it in there at the right time. And the reason why I start opening all the mics is, like I said, there's gold that produces that we don't know how it's going to be produced sometimes. And if someone has that moment and they say it and their mic was off, then we missed it. Yeah. But at the same time, if the mic's on and you're not paying attention, now you're talking when you shouldn't. Yeah. So it's a rhythm to the whole thing.
There is.
Or if you have Budinsky that I have.
Well, we all have that at times. We do. And that's part of it.
I think it's in the same family as rude Tourette's, but it's not exactly the same. It is filtered, but it just comes out sometimes.
So then there's the other part. You come in, you go, okay, there's safety in being the IT guy. I got to figure out a lot of this and figure out even what they want, because sometimes Bubba and I, we haven't quite figured out what we want. When we figure it out, we'll let you know, and we're kind of working through it. But then the dynamic of being on the air, because I've always liked shows. Bubba and I really are doing a show that we will want to listen to.
Yeah, yeah.
And I loved these shows that everybody who's working on the show potentially could be on the show. Yeah, talking across the room to somebody, hey, come here. I love that kind of stuff. I too. And so. When you realized, okay, now I'm going to be one of the guys that my whole life is not going to be paraded in front of anybody. I'm not going to be the guy in the back room that we go, oh, Helmsey's got this up on the website today.
It's a little scary.
Now I'm in here. Yeah. And what was the first time, can you remember? And I don't know this. You can even say there really hasn't been. I'm just going to assume there has been, because I know there has been for all of us. When you went for the laugh on the show, you wanted to bring something to the show, and then you returned into your community of friends and family. And you're like, oh, wow, so that a lot of people heard that.
Yeah, and I think Amanda reminded me of that, and she still does to this day. Matter of fact, I got a text from her yesterday reminding me of why she doesn't listen to Kickoff Hour a whole lot because of some of the things that were said. And, there's been stories that I've told that she doesn't want me to tell, but, sometimes I hope she doesn't hear it. Sometimes I think the laugh's better. Sometimes I just, what's best for the show. And so – there's never really been a moment where I was like, I don't know if I should tell that or not. I'm just going for it. I've always been comfortable around you guys, and that's another testament to you. You guys make it so comfortable in here, you forget you're on the air. Yep. And so I learned that really early on. I have to really, watch it. But I look back on, the college experiences with, when I was at Jacksonville, Coach Abbott, who I have many stories about, love that man, Rudy Abbott. He is the winningest coach unless something's changed in Alabama school history with 1,003 wins. And I was his last year was my last year. And when he won 1,000, I was on the team that won the 1,000th game. It was a big deal. It was covered. There was a lot of interviews. So I look back at those interview experiences that I had in regards to that has helped me here. I'll never forget doing an interview at UAB. We played UAB one night, University of Alabama, Birmingham over here, and there was an interview that I did, and I got asked 3 questions, and to this day, I don't know what I said. It made no sense. Right. It didn't answer the question.
Right.
It was embarrassing, and I told myself that day, you be prepared from here on out. And so I wrote that on this little notepad. I still think about that day of not being prepared, and it could have been something simple that I could have done to prep for that. And so I always try to make sure I'm prepped before I come in here on whatever it is we're talking about.
So you came here in 2009.
Mm-hmm.
So and certainly there's been, all of us are in this process of growing spiritually. But you were coming off what for all of us is one of those markers in Rick and Bubba history where 2008, we had the big calamity.
Yeah.
And I talked to a guy in Mississippi this past weekend. He said, I just want you to go back and tell Bubba and tell the guys, I was listening to the show one day, and you guys were talking. I literally pulled my car off on the side of the road and gave my life to Jesus. And I've always wanted to just come tell you that to your face. Please go back and tell the guys. And all of us were involved in the conversation.
Yeah.
And were you aware of that aspect of the show, or is that something that?
Well, I will say this, and I may get too detailed here, but that weekend, we were all going to Bubba's to watch the AFC and NFC championship games, and you were involved with that. Speedy was involved with that, and we were all going to watch the games. And I'll never forget getting a phone call from, or it may have been a text, I don't know, but it was just it was late on a Saturday night, and just said, hey, look, something's happened. I'll fill you in later, but we're not meeting. We're not getting together. That's okay. Well, of course, then we find out the news, and my family came to the funeral, heard you speak that day, and that's when I realized, oh wow, okay, so this guy's legit about his faith. This show's legit about their faith, and I will say this: I may not have grown up listening to the show, but I have grown up as a man being a part of this show, and and what I mean by that is, I've got a long way to go, okay? We all do. But I'm a better husband. I'm a better father. I'm a better friend. The way I treat people and handle certain situations, my spiritual life is so much different today because of you guys, you two, Greg, Speedy, Adler. And I don't truly know what my life would look like without the last 10 years. Really don't. It's scary to think about. I always tell this to people if I'm speaking or whatever, and it goes back to having accountability in your life and these type things. But you know how I picture myself as if, you can let certain kids out of the house and they run out and there's a fence there and there's or maybe there's not a fence there and kids run out of the way. They can stay there, and then you have the kids that run off. Well, I'm one of those that run off,
right.
Okay? Yeah. I need the fence to protect me.
Right.
And I feel like y'all are my fence and have been. And, I needed that. In 2009, I needed that fence. I was out running around and doing things that were just not who I said I was. And that was another reason. I didn't really know. I had about a year from Bronner and you speaking, me being at the funeral, and being around you a couple times, being around Bubba, knowing Hunter gave his life to Christ. Those things were all coming after me as a man, and changed my life, really. And I've heard story after story from people that same way. I mean, there's a physician here in town that wasn't even part of the church, didn't even know you, and he tells me every time I see him, he says, hey, I ended up in the church that day and heard Rick speak, and I'm like, look, it changed us all. It really did.
So you have that. The thing I love about what we do, and we were talking about this, and everybody, the entire team. I think I know I'm most thankful for, and this is one of the things that you've talked about before and others. I think we should never forget people don't normally go to work and know that they get to have fun, know that they get to do something that they love, and then know that they have opportunity after opportunity to actually do what is asked of every person that claims to be a follower of Christ. Yeah. Most of the time, people are trying to figure out how to make what they do impact, and that may just be that you're at the office and you're a light there, but it's incredible to be able to come here and to have all those dynamics in one place. Yeah. That doesn't happen a lot. No. That doesn't happen a lot.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It is a special place. It's a special thing that we get to do, and I certainly, I think even for the first few years, took that for granted because I was trying to find my place on the show. I was trying to find myself as a follower of Christ. I still hadn't really figured that out, and I still haven't. But certainly better today than I was yesterday, and hopefully that, tomorrow and the next day it's even better, that we continue to grow. But yeah, it is a special place, but I also think there's a platform that shouldn't be wasted, and I think y'all do a phenomenal job with that as well because you do not waste it at all. You take every opportunity that you get. Obviously, we got to do some funny things and entertain folks, but it's so funny to see those moments and how much they're impacted. And we get the emails and comments on social media and just being around folks talking in the community. It's a big deal, and it's a big responsibility.
I got an email today on the lighter note, and the person we said we were going to interview you, they said, please ask him what it was like to be in the heartfelt speech that led to one of the funniest moments in Rick and Bubba history, and that was good night. Look at that.
Yeah.
That was a request from a listener to ask you about.
One of my favorites.
And Greg says this in the bit that he kept me from crying. I really owe him a thank you because I was very emotional, and I didn't realize talking about that team and that experience that I would get that emotional about it. But I was headed down that way, and I wasn't kidding when I was telling the story when I was on the phone with my wife because it was a late night and we were coming back from Huntsville, and it was during the middle of the week, and you get back at midnight and have to turn around and get up at 3:30 or 4. Being so weak and tired, that'll cause emotions to come out as well.
Yeah.
And so all of that was just, happening. And so Greg really did, as brutal as it was, it's probably saved me from shedding some major tears.
Well, Greg took care of that.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah,
he did. Yeah.
So the dynamic of what became the Kickoff Hour, I remember, you guys do a great job, and certainly all of you play support roles and make Bubba and my life so much easier.
Absolutely.
And just to be able to just come in and talk about anything that's important, which isn't every day, of business stuff. But Bubba and I really, because of all of you, have the opportunity to show up every day and just do the show.
Yeah.
And which is just great. But the Kickoff Hour, developed into an idea of the national sales team. For those of you that love the behind the scenes stuff, the national sales team really wanted us to have a live hour that would be 6 a.m. on the Eastern time zone, the East Coast. And Bubba and I, and Bubba, you can speak to this, I just think at this stage of our life, now, look, God could make us do anything he wants to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm talking about as long as he makes it our decision, we just aren't going to get up any earlier than we do.
Yeah, I mean, we get here, usually early in the 5 o'clock hour, local time, start at 6, and when they wanted us to get here at 5, I said, I just don't think I can do it. I mean, I just can't do it. That first hour, I come in here and I read and, wander around a little bit, try to figure out who I am, get woke up, because it's just so unnatural to be up that time of day anyway. But, so this was the best of both worlds. It keeps these guys sharp, gives them something to work on, and it's a nice transition into the show every day.
So tell us about that dynamic when that started happening and what it's like for you three to try to put this thing, to get the thing started every day.
It's funny, Bubba, you bring up with getting up early, because one of the things Bubba told me 11 years ago, he said, listen, people are going to tell you that you'll get used to it.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, you're never going to get used to it. So to get that out of your mind. And you were right. And I'm an early guy. And my alarm today goes off at 3:25 every morning. Mm-hmm. But early guy would have been 5:15, 5:30, not 3:25, and it is a big difference, and it's not natural, and our bodies are paying a dear price for it.
My early time, by the way, before I started this job, my early days, straight up, early for me, I'm not making this up, I'm not even trying to be funny, was anything before 10 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my early day.
Well,
And I'm aging for both of us.
Right,
So.
right.
as far as the kickoff hour, I'll never. I got a call from Bob Carey, who does the syndicated solution, syndicates the show, and he kind of gave me this pitch, and he just said, "Hey, look, trust me on this. I've been doing this a long time." And I didn't know anything other than to trust him because I hadn't. I'd been in the healthcare IT business and then being here for a couple years. And he said, you and Speedy and Greg have a chemistry that's hard to come by. Can't explain it, but I'm just telling you, you three have it.
Can't fake it.
And so I just trusted him on that. And, of course, we did a sports show for a couple years before we started the Kickoff Hour. That kind of groomed us. I remember doing the sports show the first day, and my dad is one of the most honest people you ever be around. And he called me, and he said, I got to tell you, that was a struggle. You know, and he said, I know it's just day one. Y'all probably get better, but today wasn't so good. And
I never knew you got that.
Yeah, and so when
I'd hate to be judged on the first day.
Oh man!
But
Can you
I will
imagine
say
our
this,
first day?
But he's also the type that called me during about a year, and he goes, "I got to tell you, y'all have cranked it up. Y'all are doing a phenomenal job."
You got to figure it out. Bubba and I had to figure it out. We had chemistry, but we still had to figure out what are we and what do we do.
So that was a major growth period for us being together. And then I'll tell you the other thing that has helped me more than anything on this show is hosting best ofs, because I'm the only one here. You have to talk. You have to time things down. And so you're learning to run the board. You're playing things out of the instant replay. You have a bit that's timed down. You're going to have 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds that you're going to have to say something or it's uncomfortable. And so that really helped me progress through this.
Yeah, so have y'all kind of figured out how the dynamic works with the kickoff hour, or is it everything's evolving?
Yeah.
But It's definitely, if you knew all three of you, you're completely different personalities.
Yeah.
But in the hodgepodge, it kind of works. What is it like to have to wrangle Greg every day?
Well, it's funny. Greg and I have actually talked about this. So I'm very intentional, very strategic. I study certain things, and I'm the guy that prepares. Well, then Greg is completely opposite of that.
Correct.
And so we have talked about, I need to go towards him a little bit, and he needs to come to me a little bit. But at the same time, if we did that we say that jokingly, but if we did that, then it wouldn't be as good. And Speedy falls somewhere in the middle. And so it is a really good dynamic. And I hadn't been able to figure it out, but we're all three really good friends. You know, when we see you guys a lot too, but we spend more time together than anybody. Yeah. And so, you know, we have our group text that we have as a team, and then the Kickoff Hour we have a group text. So we'll share things with each other that that y'all would think was, why are they sending that to me? You know, that kind of thing. And so it's been fun getting to know them better, not just from the way we do the shows, but families. And so we come in and talk about because we're the first people here. We share things with one another that we won't share with y'all just because you're the first. You know, if something happened at night at the house, you're hearing it first because I need to get it off my chest.
No, that's true.
And so we learn more about each other simply because of that.
When you look at what you guys are doing, what was it like? And I'm even thinking about Speedy, and I meant to ask him. We interviewed him. It still is one thing to be in the support role, and another thing to say, all right, Rick and Bubba are not here, so we have to create this thing from zero.
Yeah.
Because when you're in here on a normal day, Bubba and I get it rolling. Here we go. We kind of have the vehicle rolling, and then you just kind of jump on for the ride. When you guys do the kickoff hour, you got to get the thing cranked up.
Yeah. I will tell you what we do, and I don't know if the guys shared this or not, but so we get here. Greg gets here usually first, believe it or not. He's about 4 a.m., and then I come in anywhere between 4:10 and 4:30, and then Speedy is 4:30. We're usually same time, or he's a little later, and so we're all getting here at different times. And so we've got about 25 to 30 minutes all together. And so we come in here and we kind of doing what we're doing now. We're talking about our day, our life, and hey, well, let's start here, and then we'll see where this goes. And we were always asking the question, we probably don't want to jump into that because I know Rick and Bubba are really going to want to discuss that. So let's just table that. But if it's a big story, then it may be worth talking about a couple times. And we also know that we're not going to say the same things in the big show that we are in the Kickoff Hour because we've got to carry the Kickoff Hour, so we're going to probably say more. And so it's just a weird dynamic. And then when we start, here's what's funny, a lot of people probably don't know this. When we start the show, we kind of have mapped out what we're going to do for that hour. So during that hour that we're actually doing the show, during the commercial breaks, we're prepping for the big show.
Yeah, that's
getting you guys stories and figuring out what's going on in your world, figuring out what guests we may have, what's on the calendar, any events, and those type of things. And so we're playing both sides of it during the Kickoff Hour. We're actually trying to produce a really good hour, but at the same time, we've got to prepare for the next 4.
Yeah, I thought about that because you guys are in support roles. I mean, your only job isn't host.
Yeah.
So you got to worry about all the stuff on our social media and our website. Speedy's got to worry about what do the guys need to know for the big show. Greg's trying to get all the commercials loaded and where they are. And normally, in a normal situation, people in those roles would just simply do that.
Yeah.
But we're telling you guys are giving you an opportunity to host a show while you're doing all that.
And see, Greg and I don't know any different. We just came in and it's all we've known. I remember you were speaking somewhere in Tennessee probably about, 5-6 years ago, and Greg and myself got on a plane with you and we went to the affiliates. And I'll never forget, because we do, for those that have never been here, we have a awesome setup. And every guest, you bring these big-time names in here that have their own shows and been doing this for years, they always are amazed at this studio. That's one of the things, golly, this is an awesome place that y'all get to come to work every day. And I'll never forget being at this affiliate. And it was a nice place, don't get me wrong. In Tennessee, it was an affiliate. And Greg looked at me and he goes, "This is where we should have started." And it was a little dated, and it was the old technology. It was nothing, and it was just in this one look. The studio was the size of Adler's TV room in there.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, this is where we probably should have started." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right."
See, Bubba, they don't have the.
We don't know any different.
They don't have the PID, the WHMA AM. Yeah. They don't have those stories.
Yeah, it's hard to realize where you're at if you started by driving a Range Rover.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Yeah. And you didn't start with that beat up Volkswagen like everybody else did.
Yeah, so you don't even. When we talk about playing commercials off of carts,
no clue what you're even talking about.
No idea.
No clue.
Yeah, playing records.
No. No idea.
No idea what that's about.
I went 2 years before
EBS
I knew what
tone.
Here's what's funny. I went about a year and a half, 2 years before I even understood what bed music was. Like when y'all would say bed music, I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah, because
you don't want to be that guy. You want to ask as many questions as you can. I'm okay with saying I don't know, but when you're in this business and you've got people that are even people around here that know more about the radio business than you do that say things, you're like, "I don't even know what that means." I feel bad, you know?
Yeah. Did you just want to ask somebody,
I know.
Hey, what's the bed music?
So I've learned a ton as far as that goes as well.
Well,
the industry in general.
I think when Bubba, how can I say this? When we wanted to build a team, we really probably, without maybe even knowing it, we wanted to build a team that wasn't built by radio people.
Right.
Yeah.
There it is. I said it.
Yeah.
Because Bubba and I don't really.
I've heard that before.
We don't really fit in the. Yeah. We know the deal, and we worked every job you could work in radio, but we don't really. We're kind of outcast by the traditional radio people, and to bring in a whole team of traditional radio people. Look at Bubba's face.
Mm. Well, and it's funny because if I was brought into one of those situations,
to be professional. We just can't do it.
If I would have been brought into one of those situations, I wouldn't have survived it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm more like y'all than I am, and that's why all this works too. I'm more like y'all than I am them. Well, I have friends that are like that, but that's just not. I couldn't do that every day.
No, and the fact that Bubba said, and I think he's right every time he asks the question. There's really two things. This show is still on there because we generally like to be around each other, but secondly, we've never pigeonholed ourselves. And to say we do this one topic every day, we're sports, we're politics, even the spiritual side of things. You know, I've never felt called to, nor I don't think I would desire to do Christian radio because I don't want to be stuck in one. Certainly, our spiritual life is the most important thing, but your spiritual life still takes you into all these other things, and you operate in these other worlds as well. Hopefully, if you get that right, these things actually are in the place they're supposed to be, but they certainly are not eradicated from your life.
Yeah.
You just talk about them in a different way, but we still have a blast.
That is the one thing I love about this show is we do everything. We talk entertainment, we talk politics, we talk Jesus, we talk sports, and in our lives. And one of the
don't forget ham radio.
Yeah, no doubt. And now me and you are NASA and SpaceX buddies.
Oh yeah.
But the one thing I realized when we did do the sports show, that was I'd been in the business for a few years then, and I thought, man, if I could just host a sports show, that would be the ultimate dream.
Yeah, I remember thinking that too.
And I remember doing that for 2 years, and when we were finished, I don't think I watched sports for 6 months. I mean, seriously, I was drained. I went on a sports sabbatical. I didn't do anything sports. Couldn't watch it, couldn't study it, and so I am glad. I'm very thankful that we do it the way we do it.
And it complicates some things, especially for, broadcasters that are trying to put us in a genre of something. But like I say, I think that's been really, if there's an underlying secret to longevity and not burning out, that's it.
Yeah.
I think you're 100% right. And I think the audience prefers it that way, but the business that we're in, the industry does it.
Yeah.
And now, with, your role here on the program, you and Adler, I mean, these roles are shifting into this whole new world of, and we'll be the ones that have to be the guinea pigs, and then we'll sort it all out. This just consumption of content that is out there in all these different platforms and all these different ways, and how you organize your social media to promotion and market, and like this podcast we're doing right now, and then you get on your YouTube and your streaming apps, and then in the middle of that is that tradition of terrestrial radio. It's a whole new world.
It is. And, you've always got your infrastructure issues with servers and firewalls and switches and internet and all those things to manage. And that's easy for me. I've been doing it for a while. But what I do love is that we are jumping into these new industries and new businesses and new, frontiers that is new to everyone. And so I get to hang out with my buddies every day. But at the same time, I'm sitting over here in my little spot, studying that, figuring that out, working with Adler, working with you guys. So I get that IT fix as well.
Well,
it's a good little mix.
Yeah, it is. And to see where all of that ends up, it's it's overwhelming. But I think
it is.
I think where a lot of people are usually shocked. Now, certainly we bring interns in, and they have a role, but they come and go. But all the things that go on, I mean, I'm dealing with this now, even with us, some of the relationships we have with Blaze TV and some of this. I think a lot of times they forget, which is a credit to the entire team, by the way. They really forget that we are 6 people.
Yeah.
All right. That's it. That's all we have.
One of the things that amazes people the most about this show, just out talking about in the community, is that we only have 6 people in here.
That's it.
That's it. And there's you have people that come from other shows that we interview, and they're like, "Where's everybody at?" I'm like, "This is it. This is all we have."
Well, it's a blast.
And I think that's a testament to each and every one of the people that are in this building.
Oh, yeah.
No doubt.
They do a great job. Everybody does.
Yeah. Well, Helms, it's been great to kind of unpack the Michael Helms story a little bit. And it's only beginning. There's much more to go. Bubba, we've completed yet another edition of Rick and Bubba University.
We may have to have Helms back and delve into his baseball hitting theories.
Okay. All right. That'll be another upcoming podcast. Thanks for being with us.
Love you guys.
On this edition of Rick and Bubba University.